79s, a Clone Wars fanfiction by Shenanigan Skywalker. Voiced by true sons of Mandalore as Captain Rex, Jaig Eye as ArcTrooper 5s, Sky Hicks as the Bartender, and Why Hedgehogs Fly as Zurok. The artificial glow of aqua lamps and flashing signs painted the city streets neon. Somewhere beyond the cloud of pollution and dwindling twilight, stars dotted the planet's skyline. Rex stepped on the accelerator. His speeder bike responded with a hum as he dipped into the traffic swarming Coruscant's topside. A warm breeze brushed across the captain's bare face as he picked up speed. The distant blare of club music hung in the humid night air, overpowered by the much closer sound of rowdy laughter and whir of transports. The life all around him, noisy and chaotic though it was, reminded him of Kamino. Not because Coruscant and Kamino had anything in common. No, because they were complete opposites. He had spent his first 10 years on Kamino, ushered from simulation to simulation, every aspect of life sterile and structured. Back then, he never would have imagined that places like the inner city of Coruscant even existed, where people went about as they pleased, shopping, partying, wandering without destination or duties. A hub for highway robbery and trouble, at least after nightfall. Two extremes, both cold and unforgiving in their own sort of ways. Air lanes poured into crisscrossing intersections as Rex reached the city center. Skyscrapers, their spires etching the horizon, towered in sparse clusters along the perimeter of the square. Billboards dotted the lines of shops. They advertised everything from droid rentals to live entertainment. Taxicabs docked on a nearby landing bay, fishing for passengers. Far above the bustling traffic, on a massive screen that Rex was sure could be seen from outer space, played a holo recording of the Supreme Chancellor. Rex couldn't tell what he was saying. Probably something vague and inspirational about the state of the Republic. Stats about the war that weren't quite true. The Chancellor was smiling, addressing the public, though the public seemed less than interested right now. The ebb and flow of traffic thinned out slightly as Rex made eastward toward the outer edge of the city square. There wasn't much of interest to him here. A few residence buildings, food joints, hole-in-the-wall nightclubs, but one club in particular stood out from the rest. It was situated on the corner of the highest level, overlooking a vast view of the city. Far in the distance sat the Jedi Temple and the Senate building, and past that, sprawling military bases. Rex eased off the accelerator, docking on the landing platform. Above him, a large orange sign illuminated the walkways. Flashing purple lights read, 79s. Rex hadn't been to the clone bar since he was a shiny, and he wouldn't be here tonight if it wasn't necessary. But he had received a complaint that one of his men had supposedly been disturbing the peace. Part of him burned with irritation. They had work to do, a mission to Mon Calamari to prepare for. He didn't have time to bail one of his men out of a stupid stunt they had gotten themselves into. But he knew the problem would be resolved faster if he just handled the situation himself. It was better than getting one of the boys reported to a higher-up. Rex hopped off his speeder, securing it. Music saturated the night air as troops flocked in droves at the entrance to 79s. Naval officers, corporals, shinies unable to keep their alcohol down. A few clones stumbled in a drunken stupor, singing. One lay fast asleep in the doorway, his head nodding back against a wall. Rex stepped over him and into the bar. The scene inside was much the same. Clones lounging in armchairs, on bar stools, jeering, drinking, placing bets on pod races that played on screens above the countertops. Mingling with Twi'leks, a few other alien species also in the mix. Rex's eyes followed a spiral staircase that led up to a second level, where a narrow balcony overlooked the Cantina. Rex scanned the room for the blue and white paint scheme of the 501st, but the haze and strobe lights of the dance floor made it difficult to differentiate one color from another, much less identical faces. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Rex was beginning to believe that whoever had complained just wanted to send him on a wild bantha chase, and they had succeeded.
Hey, you.
Rex turned to see a weak-way bartender polishing the inside of a wine glass.
Yeah, Blondie. Come here.
Rex walked over to the bar, choosing to ignore the unceremonious nickname. Two coarse black braids, tied back by a faded red bandana, hung down over the Weequay's shoulders. His dogged face was lined with age and sun. His two beady charcoal eyes studied Rex up and down.
So you're that captain, huh?
I heard you've got a problem with one of my men.
That one of yours?
The waiter motioned toward the far corner of the room, where a small crowd had gathered around the game table. Past the clusters of bystanders, Rex spied a clone, sporting the dark gray and black of an ARC trooper pauldron, and a laugh that Rex recognized immediately. Fives?
Yeah, it's one of mine.
Well, he's swindling people out of their credits. Don't know how he's doing it, but he's been sitting there for hours now. Hasn't lost a game yet.
The Weequay placed the newly polished glass on a shelf behind the bar, running his grubby hands through the folds of his apron.
A little cheat's what he is. Good kid, I think, but a cheat. Cold 'cause I didn't care to see his head bashed in. He should thank me.
Rex gave the waiter a small nod in gratitude. Then he weaved his way through the partygoers toward Fives, where a notably annoyed Trandoshan played the clone in a match of holochess. Fives glanced up from his game momentarily. Everything, from his dilated eyes to the impish grin on his face, indicated that he had had far too many to drink.
Hey, Rex. Come to see my winning streak for yourself?
Fives, what are you doing? Have you forgotten we've got a campaign to prep for?
Rex hissed in his brother's ear, careful to keep a watchful eye on the agitated Trandoshan across the game table. Fives ignored the question, motioning toward the reptilian.
I guess you haven't met my friend here. What's your name again? What? Zorak. Yeah, that's right.
Fives took a swig from his glass, before reverting his attention back to the game.
Zorak here claims to be the finest degenerate player on this side of Coruscant. Unbeatable, in fact. But I think we all know that's not quite true.
Fives' avatar lunged forward on the game board, strangling its enemy. Zorak snarled, confused as he frantically pressed the controls, all to no avail. The Trandoshan's avatar glitched out, and the round was over.
While I appreciate the sentiment, you know you don't have to let me win. Every time.
Fives gathered the small pile of credits, pulling them over to his side of the game table. He downed the last bit of alcohol from his glass.
Hey, bartender. Another round over here. Compliments my new friend Zorak here.
The Trandoshan roared, his bare arm smashing the glass screen. There was a feral, hostile gleam in his eyes as he glared at the ARC trooper.
Well, game over then, I guess.
Fives said, smirking at his livid opponent. It was obvious that Fives had cheated. Maybe not to the people observing now, but Rex knew it. General Skywalker had taught the boys in Torrent Company how to rig the system a long time ago, but the trick went undetected by everyone else. Rex grabbed Fives by the shoulder, pulling him away.
You need to shut up before you get yourself killed. Give the lizard his money back.
But Rex, I've won. Cut and dry.
What, you don't think I'd recognize one of General Skywalker's tricks when I see it?
But
Fives? Now.
Rex was interrupted as the Trandoshan shoved him out of the way, edging closer to the ARC trooper.
I won't be fooled by some crummy deadbeat clone. Pay up. All of it.
Fives' jaw clenched, and he crossed his arms over his chest in defiance.
Fives, just calm down.
Rex interjected, trying to de-escalate the situation. But the trooper ignored him, still staring up at the Trandoshan.
look, pal, it's not my fault you can't win a game to save your Griffin life, okay?
With a thunderous roar and one fell swoop, Zorak flung Fives over the nearest sofa. Clones and their Twi'lek dance partners scattered as Fives fell onto the dance floor. His reflexes were slow, sloppy, as he tried to scramble out of Zorak's reach. The Weequay waiter ducked behind the bar as Zorak slammed Fives against the countertop. He thrust him forward, sending the clone sliding across the surface of the bar. Fives toppled off the other end, bottles and shot glasses clattering to the floor along with him. The Trandoshan cursed, shoving a bar stool, and the clone sitting on it, out of his way. Fives had barely struggled to his knees when the agitated alien was back on top of him. The ARC trooper squirmed, pinned under the creature's monstrous weight, as he managed to dodge one blow after another. Zorak snarled in frustration. He swung his arm back once more, finally landing a punch. hardly pausing before pummeling him again. His claw swiped the side of Five's face, and the trooper let out a pained cry. Rex pushed his way through the crowd of shocked onlookers, jumping to his brother's defense. He lunged onto the Trandoshan's back, attempting to pry the beast off of Fives. It was a clumsy attempt at a distraction, but it was enough to divert the brawler's attention away from the other clone. The Trandoshan rolled off of Fives, grasping blindly at his new opponent. Rex pulled him into a headlock, but holding on was even more challenging than he had anticipated. Zurok reared back, slamming the captain against a wall. A shockwave of pain shot up Rex's spine, stunning him. His grip weakened momentarily, but it was enough time for Zurok to break Rex's holds. He jerked Rex by the wrist and effortlessly hurled the clone over his shoulder. Rex crashed onto a card table. He groaned, testing the mobility of his twisted arm. The bystanders were cheering him on now, shouting for him to get back up. Zurok towered over the captain, fangs bared, ready to strike. Rex rolled out of the way, barely missing the reptilian's fists as they smashed the card table. He fumbled for his twin blasters. Zurok noticed and gave Rex a swift kick, his massive claw forcing Rex to the ground. The pressure drove the air from Rex's lungs, threatening to crush his ribcage. Suddenly, the Trandoshan's guttural hiss split into a blood-curdling roar. He whirled around. Rex caught a glimpse of glass shards protruding from the lizard's shirt, where a bottle had shattered against his back.
Hey, this is Bray.
Fives had staggered to his feet again, his hand around the neck of another bottle of ale. He smirked, unfazed by the blood coursing down the length of his face, where the Trandoshan's claw had scathed him. He swayed slightly, bracing himself against the bar. He was obviously disoriented, whether from the fights or the alcohol, Rex couldn't tell. Fives continued to taunt the reptilian, stoking its rage. In a flash, Zurok pounced after him. Fives prepared to swing another bottle, this time aimed at the Trandoshan's head. But Zurok grabbed his arm, wrenching it back. With the other hand, he seized Fives by the neck. He dragged the clone forward until Fives' face was mere inches from his own. The Trandoshan's throat rattled with an agitated growl, his tongue flicking.
Don't test me, clone.
Fives' defiant scowl morphed into an amused smile.
Oh, Fives.
Rex thought.
Don't do it, you idiot.
Just as Rex expected, Fives spit in the Trandoshan's face. Zurok roared, dangling the ARC trooper above the floor. He began to throttle him. Rex reached for his holsters and drew one of his DC-17s. In the blur of a moment, he must have instinctively switched the blaster from kill to stun, because the next thing he knew, the Trandoshan was reeling backward, racked with blue electricity. Rex pulled the trigger again, and the lizard collapsed into an unconscious heap. There was a lull in the room, near silence except for the static of hollow nets and the coughing and gasping of Fives as he struggled to catch his breath. Rex stood, holstering his blasters as he stepped over the motionless body of the Trandoshan. He gripped his brother by the shoulders and hoisted him to his feet. Fives rocked from side to side, a nauseous gleam in his dilated eyes. When he had finally regained his composure, Fives turned to face the cantina full of shocked onlookers. He grabbed Rex's wrist, holding his arm up in triumph.
Let's hear it for the captain!
The bar erupted in a rowdy mix of whoops and claps as the clones gave a toast and returned to their drinks. Rex jerked his hand away. He caught Fives by the collar, dragging him out the door of the bar and into the open night air. Rex led him further still, to secluded landing bay wedged beside 79's. It was only when they were out of earshot that Rex released Fives with a rough shove.
Have you lost your mind? What the blazes were you thinking, Fives? Picking a fight with a Trandoshan?
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, really? He nearly ripped your face off.
Well, I'm fine now, ain't I?
No, you're reckless. You could have gotten yourself killed, and you don't even care.
Will you get off my back already? All you've done is hound me ever since.
Fives' voice trailed off. He clenched his fists, and his eyes dropped. Ever since the Citadel and Echo. Rex drew a deep breath, trying to calm his rattled nerves. He took a long, hard look at his little brother. Dried blood streaked the trooper's face, from the tattoo on his temple down to his chin. A forming bruise curved around his eye. Self-inflicting anger flickered in his gaze, along with guilt, and what Rex knew was the desire to be left alone. And Rex had tried that, leaving Fives alone when it had seemed he needed it. Rex had felt the same many times before. After an especially grueling campaign, watching his brothers fall around him, sometimes all he wanted was to be left alone for hours, days if necessary, usually until he pulled himself out of the rut, or someone else, like Cody, did it for him. Left alone in grief for too long, you can begin to lose yourself. And looking at Fives now, drunk, disheveled, hardly a shadow of who he had been a short month ago, Rex saw a reflection of himself.
Vod, I told you you can talk to me.
And I, Griffin, told you I don't want to talk about it.
I lost my badge too, Fives. A long time ago. I know how you feel. But coping like this...
Drop it, Rex. I don't need your pity. Do me a favor and leave me alone.
Fives began to walk away, presumably back to 79's.
Vod'ika.
Rex caught his arm.
I said, leave me alone!
The sudden, electrifying impact of Fives' fist against Rex's jaw overwhelmed his sensations. Though his head swam, he reacted quickly enough to deflect the next punch. He twisted Fives' arm into a wrist lock and wrestled him to the ground. Fives threw his elbow back, but Rex dodged it. He fought desperately to pry himself from the captain's unrelenting grip, but Rex didn't let up.
Take it out on me if you want, but getting yourself killed isn't going to bring Echo back! And I am not going to lose you too!
Fives' movement slowed as he struggled to catch his breath, still winded from his brawl in the cantina. Eventually, he gave up altogether. Rex felt him go limp in his arms, shaking as he covered his face with both hands. He sucked in a sharp breath that turned into a sob.
I didn't stop him. Why didn't I stop him?
Because you couldn't, Vod. There's nothing you could have done.
Rex pulled Fives off the pavement and into an upright position. Several long moments dragged by as Rex held fast to his grieving brother. He was careful to wipe the blood seeping from the gash on Fives' temple.
It's going to be okay, brother.
Fives looked Rex in the eye.
How can you be so sure of that? What would you have done if you lost Cody?
Rex's attempt at consolation fell flat, because he knew there was a hint of truth in what Fives said. Cody had been there since the beginning, since Camino, much like Echo had been there for Fives. Rex couldn't imagine losing him. Of course, the idea had crossed his mind before, many times, but he had trained himself not to harbor thoughts like that for too long. Rex searched for the right words, but what more was there for him to say that would be of any help? He couldn't truly promise things would be okay. He couldn't promise they wouldn't lose any more brothers. That would be impossible by any stretch of the imagination. All he could promise was that he would be there for Fives when he needed it the most. Sometimes just being there was more support than words could ever be.
I'm sorry.
Fives said, referring to Rex's inflamed jaw. Rex had hardly registered the ache throbbing up into his skull.
It's alright. I've had worse.
Fives' gaze fell. He pulled his knees up to his chest, slowly running his fingers through his tousled hair.
Look, Fives.
Rex placed a hand on his brother's shoulder.
Whenever you need me, I'll be there. You have to know that.
Fives drew a shaky breath.
Thank you, Ori'vod. I know you will.
The end.